Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me. So, I guess, should I just start or should I wait?
Yes, please do
Linda?
go ahead. Yes, you can start.
Just can start. Okay, wonderful. So, hello, everybody. My name is Boaz Nia Fyler. I'm an evolutionary astrologer and the Israeli satellite for OPA, the Organization for Professional Astrology. And I'm glad you could all join us or seeing this recording. Today I'll be talking about a new gender paradigm for all of us, for all of the people studying, enjoying, or working with astrology in their lives. Our traditions are old, but in this day and age, they do require an update. And I'll try and find new pathways together with you along this presentation. You can always write down the questions you have in the chat and I'll try to refer to them at the end. And I want you to remember first and foremost that this is an exploration, a mutual exploration that is updating itself as our human consciousness, communal consciousness evolves. Now, just a few words about me. I'm an evolutionary astrologer. I teach and lecture both in Europe and the United States and in Israel, of course. And I like 8th house themes, like gender and sex in charts and death charts as well, as part of my fascination. And I can't start this presentation without saying a word about the times we are in and how comforting it is that we are as astrologers informed of great cycles and that we have not been completely unprepared to the transformative period we are amidst right now. And that we can immediately recognize that it is not arbitrary, and in fact, it is a quickening, a birthing into the Aquarian age. Suddenly, everybody's using Zoom. Suddenly, everybody's thinking about the simple things and about how important codependency is. So just a word about that and about remembering to be a light and a guide to whoever it is amongst you that needs that guidance and light, and to yourselves, of course, in these transformational time in which we reshape our future. And it is the most important time for us to be alive. But I transgress. If you want to talk about these times, there's a free talk on my Facebook page. Gave it an hour ago. You can go and listen to it. It's free and the link is for everybody. I was interviewed about something called the Posi Fest that I'm taking part in Saturday, which is also for free. Link is in my Facebook page. So, new gender paradigm. What are we talking about when we talk about gender? So let's go to Wikipedia, Gender, according to Wikipedia, is a range of characteristics pertaining and differentiating between masculinity and femininity depending on context. These characteristics may include biological sex, i.e. the state of being male, female, or intersex in variation, sex-based social structures, i.e. gender roles, or gender identity. That's three different things. Most cultures use a gender binary, having two genders, boys, men, and girls, women. And those who exist outside these groups fall under the umbrella of non-binary genderqueer. Some societies have specific genders besides men and women, such as Hijras of South Asia, And these are often referred to as third genders and fourth genders, etc. I want to refer, this is an historical anecdote. We have many genders, more than two. In fact, from the birthing of time. And historically, these figures, especially in native cultures before patriarchy and let's say patriarchal religion grew stronger, were always utilized as gateways, shamans, clerics between the mundane and the mystic, the natural and supernatural. They will always seem to their communities as shamans and priests. And indeed, this role is coming again today. Even in the Hebrew Old Testament and Genesis, we have 5 different genders. 5. Intersex, male to female, female to male, male and female. As astrologers, we all learned the old paradigm of astrology, the binary paradigm of astrology. And here I am today, people, and here you are for a new paradigm that we so desperately need. We all learned the alternating rhythm of the zodiac: male, female, male, female, male, female. I want you to replace that term today with inverted, extroverted, inverted, extroverted, inverted, extroverted, and indeed walk forward into a more colorful, vibrant, and richer age. An age which in all of us, in fact, have the personal responsibility to be who we are in order to create a more tolerant, accepting, just reality for all of us, not just for genderqueer people, for all of us. And in this gender blender new age, in which you can't tell already what is what, we have to adapt and understand that we are talking about a male to female continuum, a continuum that is fluid. And indeed, may the first person that feels that he or she were not too male or too female in some part of her life and sometime walk out, stand out of this meeting and disconnect right now, because we all wear different hats, different masks in different places of our lives, different images that we project, and some of those are much more feminine and some of those are much more masculine, and even those shift among our lives. I could be much more masculine with one aspect of my life, but 10 years later be much more feminine in it, and that would be personal evolution for me. That's the way it is, whether we like it or not. And life is stronger than our caste system or beliefs or philosophies. It shows us the truth at the end, and we're going to talk about a bit of natural history now. Let's talk about the elements. And we know that, again, they're all either male or female, but I want to suggest today a new idea. The first element, initial element, the spark, the beginning, was fire. And indeed, if we go to the history of this universe, the initial beginning of the universe was with a spark, or a bang, or an expansion, however you want to see it, a seed that was sown. And in that hot new inferno, we could see the male attribute. Indeed, I want to suggest that this is the only male element truly male element. And then we have water, the female element, the only true female element. And in this universe, as fire was cooled down by water, a new essence emerged. And indeed, the only way that dirt, earth, has ever been produced is by the cooling of fire by water. And we could see it to this day in places where we have active volcanoes puffing their lava onto the sea, where new ground is formed, and after few years alone, this is the richest earth. So we understand that even though we've learned that the earth element is female in nature, and indeed it has female characteristics, it has a nucleus, a center, an origin, which is male, and was cooled down by the feminine. And we can attribute that to a male to female transgender. And in the very same manner, I want to suggest that air isn't male. It's androgynous just as earth is, but it's vice versa. It has a feminine nucleus and an outward appearance and characteristics of a male element. And how is air created, if not by the heating of water by fire to the point they become vapor and gas? And we can see the resemblance in the ancient glyphs, more ancient than astrology itself. We can see that the only true different glyphs are the fire and the water, opposing each other, one looking like the phallus, one looking like the yoni, the female organ, and the other two are carbon copies of these two, except they have another line there. Some say remnants, reminding us of that other nucleus that was there before that new triangle was formed. And of course, that others see the earth element with the line standing for the earth and the air element standing for the sky, for the heavens. And in this new technicolor world, we don't have only male or female, we have a plethora of identities. And oh dear me, is this confusing. So let's try and give you some tools to feel more comfortable when you meet clients and friends and just people, or if you have questions about yourself. So here is what we know thus far, and this gets updated all the time. The gender unicorn. We have a thing called gender identity, which is I am male or female or something other. And that's how I feel about myself inside. It has nothing to do with this second thing called gender expression, which could be, again, feminine, masculine, or anything in between. I could feel very girly and still present myself as very macho. And that wouldn't be because of how I feel inside, but of what I expect people to, how I expect to be received and interact in my society. It's something very social. And through my work with NGOs, I've been working with NGOs for the past 20 years. I've worked with a lot of LGBT organizations, and I saw people bigger than me, and much bigger than I look on cam, I'm 6'4", that's 195 meters tall. People bigger than me, much wider than me, with big beards, and they asked to be referred to as female. And women who were the picture of femininity who wanted to be referred to as male. So I want to assert that how we feel inside doesn't mean that we express it on the outside. And our sex, as it was assigned at birth, is a third thing altogether. I know it's much more complicated. Now wait for this next part. I could be physically attracted to man or woman or anything in between, but emotionally attracted to something else. I could say, listen, you know, when it comes to sex, I need a man, you know, I need it animalistic, I need a passion, I need to be suited. But when it comes to cuddling and intimacy and talking, I can't talk to a man, you know, a man doesn't understand me. And I need that emotional intimacy with a woman. So as we become more advanced and complicated, things become more advanced and complicated as well. And what I want you to understand is that you need to assume nothing. Nothing. And if there's one sentence I want you to come out of today is hearts, not parts. Hearts, not parts. You can never tell what a person is feeling inside by what they carry or how they look. I want to extend one of the paradigms that I've grew upon and echo the words of an American pastor named Martin Luther King Jr., who said, I have a dream. I have a dream in which my children would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their characters. And I want to extend that color of their skin to say their gender expression, how much money they have or don't have in the bank, how high their education was, or how many followers they have on Instagram, or any other characteristic but the contents of their character. And by the way, talking about the Aquarian age, that's what Aquarius enjoys the most. Character. In this new brave age, we had many new pronouns that confused everybody, including me. They, them is good enough. I like we the best. And you could really forget about them because they get outdated so fast. But there are some things I want you to know about. You don't say transgendered, you say transgender. You don't say intersexed, you say intersex. And if you want to use transgendered as a verb, say he went through transition. You don't say a transgender or transgender, you say a transgender person or transgender people. And instead of sex change or sex reassignment surgery or gender reassignment surgery, you could use gender affirming surgery or genital reassignment surgery. Because surgery does not change one's sex or gender, only genitalia. And it certainly didn't change anything I felt inside. It just corrected it or affirmed it. Aligned the outside with the inside, so to speak. So it's a more politically correct way to talk about things. 5 things you should know about trans people. Not all trans people identify as male or female. Trans people have all sorts of different identities outside the gender binary. Trans folk have many different sexual orientations. Gender identity and sexual orientations are two separate things. Trans people are very socially and politically active, and they led the Stonewall riots. Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson were two among many trans women of color who were on the front lines. This one is important. Not all trans people want surgery, and even fewer get surgery. We all have a myth about trans regrets. What if you regret it? So by the widest survey done to this day, about 94 to 96% of people going through transition are happy with the results. That means that 9 out of 10 people say that their life were improved by their transition, that their mental stability and aptitude was enhanced by this transition, that they feel happier. Oops, I'm sorry. Still have a lot to go. So I'm going ahead. This is a really important one. Why support for trans youth is so important. So look at the staggering differences between people who have support networks and people who don't. That's friends and family. And parents are a crucial item in that support network. So if you have clients coming in with kids dealing with these gender issues or dealing with these gender issues themselves, make them understand how important that support is. So reported life satisfaction with supportive parents, 72%. Without supportive parent, 33%. Reported high self-esteem, 64%. And look, just 13%. Described mental health as very good or excellent, 70% versus 15%. Faced housing problems, 0%. More than half, 55%. Suffered severe depression, 23% alone, 75% on the other side. And attempted suicide, 4% versus 57%. That's almost 60%. That's one of two people that don't think about committing suicide, but actually try to do it. When I was exposed to these statistics a year and a half ago, working with trans rights, I was amazed. I don't think we have this attempted suicide rate in death row. And I never thought I am ever going to go near these statistics, being such a positive spiritual person that I am. But when my support system was cut after coming out of the closet as trans and being disconnected from my child and my ex-wife and my mother and my sister, it felt so depressing that, you know, for the first time I had to deal with just wanting to end it all. So this is extremely important, extremely important. And here I am, a grown-up person talking about it. Imagine a younger person. So speak up, you know. When you hear people talking about us as confused, you tell them we aren't confused. We know who we are, and we need your support. You can tell them that trans people are happy being trans. It's just their environment that makes them uncomfortable being themselves. And there's many different examples here from social occasions at work. You could look at it later in the video. I don't want to waste more time. I want to get to the astrology of it. So in order to have a better assessment regarding sexual orientation and gender expression in the native, in the person that we look at his or her chart, their chart, we have to evaluate the feminine and masculine aspects in the natal chart. And how do we do that? The question of how much masculine or feminine can affect or does affect how the energy in the chart plays out, especially if it touches what I call sexual hotspots, which I'll show you in a second. The more masculine or feminine elements I would have in those spots, the more strong or subtle my energy would be in my sexual expression or depression. So where should I look? I should look for power buildup in these areas of the chart. If I have a power buildup in these areas of the chart, I would become more sexual and gender expression would become more important to me. If I have power inhibitors like Saturn and Neptune in these places, those can constrict, dissolve, and actually postpone the way we exhibit our gender and sexuality for some years. Now I want you to look. It's not only the 8th and the 2nd axis. It's not only the 5th house. It's also the cusp of the 6th. And it's also the cusp of the 3rd. What I'm implying is that Mercury and mercurial essence plays a key role here. So I would look first of all for the 8th house, Scorpio, Mars, Aries, and Venus, 7th, 2nd, Taurus, Libra placements, prominence in the chart, and signs, angles to other planets, and so on and so forth as key players. Second, sexual houses and sign, power buildup in the 2nd 2 axis or Taurus Scorpio axis, and the placement of sexual symbols therein. Also in the 5th and the 6th houses, or Leo and Virgo. Why Leo and Virgo? These are the most, these are the places in which our self-manifestation is created and worked and labored on and perfected in a sense. If we have a lot of sexual expression there, that is either male or female, then that expression would be important to us in our self-becoming, in our self-manifestation, and the service and work we come here to do, 6th house. Amendment, if you will. And of course, an effect on the luminaries, sign, houses, planets, and placements of the sun and the moon. As an evolutionary astrologer, I always look at these places. First of all, the 4 corners of the chart, AC, DC, MC, IC, and the lunar nodes. I want to bring up the 4/10 axis, the Cancer Capricorn axis, as an axis that has been associated by other astrologers, and I believe they are correct, with gender themes, with the gender reversal, and indeed with the hero's journey, with self-becoming through life, with the need for growing up and taking your place in destiny, from inception to destiny, from the 10th to the 4th. And astrologers say that if you have that in your chart, you've been of a different gender in a previous life. I don't know if I sign up to that, but it certainly we can certainly see it play a role with gender issues. A little about the qualities in the chart. I want to refer to the mutable quality. And this is from my study and the study of other astrologers, but it's a study. So I encourage you to go on with that study. And if you find anything important, I'd love to know about it too. Mutable energy seems to have an effect with how sexuality plays out in our life. And we can find people with a lot of mutable energy, a power buildup in mutable houses or signs that are very open-minded, that have a very experimental attitude, sometimes extroverted and ever fluctuating, very curious, and to an effect that gender and sexuality could become sort of an obsession, at least for someone who is looking at it from the outside. It would look to that person looking from the outside as this is something seemingly extreme and major in that person's liberal and open character. But if you ask the person themselves, they would tell you that this is part of the paradigm, the idea, the ideas and words and philosophies that they want to push through in the world. That this is part of their truth. If we want to look for sexual openness in a chart, we have to look for Uranus and Mercury, as well as Neptune. They can all contribute to one having less boundaries in our sexual conduct, and generally say that we could become less obedient to social traditional norms. However, hypersexuality in the chart can as well produce sexual curiosity that would induce more experimentation, resulting in greater sexual openness, because I would want to find out more, and my level of excitement would go up. These traits can be obstructed by signs of insecurity or signs of reliance on external factors to provide the moral, the spiritual, or the ethical codes of conduct. What I'm saying is that the more a person has a strong inner backbone, a secure inner compass, that the authority lies within, the more he has the potential to be sexually open. If he takes into consideration his personal truth before that of his community, society, or religion, he can feel less socially constricted and thus be less inhibited to explore. When it comes to non-sexuality or asexuality, people who don't want to have a physical contact, that they enjoy having a relationship that is purely platonic. It's a lack of a physical urge. Sometimes it even disgusts them. So we could see people that have in their charts a post-trauma, or that a strict moral code was enforced upon them and made them feel guilty about those parts in their character. And then we have to talk about mental illnesses that grow out of it. But some people without any traumas just don't need the physical sexual connection. They live in their minds, and we can see a very big dose in their chart of Uranus, Saturn, or Aquarius, Capricorn in sexual hotspots, and usually not enough primal sexual influences in the chart. So sexuality doesn't manifest in the physical form. It would need to be advanced, different, innovative sexuality in the native's eye, and above the primal proletariat. And if we see Neptune Pisces there, it can contribute as well to disengagement from the senses and lowering sexual urges. Now, when we talk about lesbianism and homosexuality, Uranus and Aquarius come to the stage again, and they would be heightening as we commence onward. This is the Uranian realm we are entering. But here we would find a strong dose of Mercury in Gemini. Other than that, we would need strong masculine influences, usually in sexual hotspots. Aries, Mars, Leo, Sun, Sagittarius, Jupiter, for both sexes. The hotspots in the chart could also be influenced in a reversed manner. Male influence where female should be, and vice versa. But there would be a strong male influence in both charts usually. When it comes to my favorite part, androgyny and the transgender spectrum, to that Uranus, Aquarian, Mercury, Gemini cocktail, put in a double helping of the 6th and Virgo. That's Mercury again coming at you, with a dash of a Mars-Venus conjunction, male-female conjunction. And I want to say fixed stars count. And this is where I'm opening a window. I've been fortunate enough to be exposed to the great work of Dr. Bernadette Brady and Darlene Ginsburg. Dr. Brady is a woman, an astrologer, that her work done in any other field would grant her the Nobel Prize. She truthfully resurrected a vast body of knowledge of astrology that would have been lost for more time if it wasn't for her, and dedicated her life to it. Horoscopic astrology, concentrating on the solar system and planets, is here for only the last 2,000 years. But before that, we talked about the whole sky, all of the constellations, including the sitting stars, not only the moving ones. And we had mythologies and explanations for everything. And that knowledge, since Sumeria and Assyria and Babylonia and Egypt, was lost. But through faithful work, it has been resurrected. And I want to tell you that fixed stars count, and we'll be seeing it in a second. Usually with older people of the older generation, my age and older, we'll see a strong mix of Pluto and Mars, 8th Scorpio, a transformative force in the chart. Uranus, the 11th, or Aquarius, a rebellious, non-conformative, head-on force in the chart. And as I said, for older people, a strong dose of Saturn, 10th, Capricorn. And those would be mixed, those energy would be mixed with the Venus, or second house in the chart. But Venus energy in the chart. 7th house in the chart, so body and relationships. Venus implies our relationship with the physical plane. The fact that we are in a body, that we have senses, that we interact with others and enjoy it. And this is a biggie. Mars and Venus conjunction, you'll see it in a second. When we see them in an angle, and especially conjunct, we see it a lot with people with gender issues or a non-binary gender. Venus gets excited and becomes more primal in nature. Mars cools down and becomes more feminine and gentle. And it always asserts the need for healthy sexuality in a relationship if it's not greatly obstructed, by other planets and placements. But it brings forth a lot of the time a kind of androgyny. And not in a bad way. The person usually enjoys it. It brings a hedonistic nature. Of course, again, it depends on the house and sign placement. But we'll see it a lot in charts in a second. Mercury, people with a lot of Mercury in their charts, especially in the sexual hotspots, will think about sex. Their mind would be occupied with sex. And that would make them a lot more curious and verbal and extroverted, and they would need greater variety. These people are prone to androgynous, pansexual experiences. They get bored much easier. When we get to Uranus, Uranus brings, again, a cerebral influence. But it will raise the subject of sexuality from a lower chakra issue to an upper chakra one. Uranus recognizes that our biggest sex organ is the brain. Individuality and innovation count here. And one's sexuality will have to reflect unorthodox ideas, sometimes ahead of their time, totally different than the mainstream. And in extreme situations, as I said before, if the connection to the senses isn't strong enough, I will choose to give up physical sexuality for asexuality that exists in the intellectual sphere. And our little friend Pluto. Intensity, transformation, deep surging emotions, compulsions, aggression, struggle if opposed. Intense experiences, transformative experiences, the need to feel truly alive through those, a gateway for change, for personal evolution. And something that could certainly shed a light on those deep caverns I carry within me. These are people who want the raw, who want the taboo, who like to dance with their shadows because they know that they transform from that encounter. They will not tolerate hypocrisy, sanctiones, which I always have a hard time saying. And they can be very determined and driven in their totality. And as I said, they could be obsessive as well. And when it comes to fixed stars, here is some that I've identified as dealing with gender over time. First, Alcyone. So here are words by Marcus Melinis. That's, I think, 3rd century AD. 1st century AD. And he talked about Alcyone in particular and the Pleiades cluster in general. And he said people born with this cluster aspecting their sun would smooth their hairy limbs with porous pumice, loathing their manhood and craving for slickness of arm. They would adopt feminine dress, footwear done not for wear but for show, and an affected effeminate gait. They are ashamed of their sex, which is another way of saying they like to get by other men. and that was a way of saying they're gay. But Marcus Melinis is saying they're not gay, baby, they're transgendered. This written almost 2,000 years ago. That struck me down when I saw it. And he further goes on and says, and I think Ptolemy says as well, that this star, Alcyone, combines the natures of Venus and Mars. Spica, the lonely one, or the good star, lucky star. And again, Ptolemy says, Spica is of the nature of Venus and Mars. Look for those. And last but not least, Altair, the neck of an eagle in the Aquila constellation. And again, spectra of Mars and Venus, says Ptolemy. And I'm jumping ahead here. Strong passions and a bold, confident, valiant, unyielding, ambitious, and liberal nature associated with the sign of Scorpio. Also has been said to give certain sex irregularities. Of course, the combination of Mars and Jupiter is bound to create high libido. which is the Aquila constellation, Mars Jupiter. The sex drive with boldness will result in the subject being unashamedly outre out of their sexuality. The star carries the divine fire of inspiration, which transforms into determination, the ability to achieve through risk-taking or through dogged determination. This is a star of action and strength, and so will naturally action rather than inaction. At the same time, the quest for action is not just for its own sake, but also to serve others. By taking bold action myself, I also serve a higher purpose. That's the main idea of Althea. I need to be bold, not only for my own sake. So let's look at some charts, and we're not going to have time to totally go through them. I just want you to look at a few things. I want you to look, this is a male trans man. That means a person that was born as female and now identifies as male. I want you to look at the Sun, Jupiter in Gemini in the 6th. I want you to look at Saturn in Leo in the 8th. And I want you to look at Pluto on the North Node in Libra, with Spica smack on the North Node of the Moon as well. Funnily enough, we often see Uranus in Scorpio in the 8th house. Here it's in the 10th in Scorpio. And how not, on the Dragon's Tail, we can see the Mars-Venus conjunction. Another male trans man, this time we can see the nodes in the Leo Aquarius, 5th house, 11th house axis reversed. We can see the conjunction of Mars and Venus in Leo on the South Node. And we can see the Sun conjunct Mercury. Pluto very, very strong in the 2nd house in its domicile. Female trans woman, look at the 8th house, look at the 7th house, Sun conjunct Spica. Again, Mars-Venus conjunction, conjunct Uranus, conjunct Mercury, all in the 8th. And here we don't have the Mars-Venus conjunction, but the Mars is in Libra, which is kind of the same thing. And it's ruled by a very strong Venus in the same house. Again, we can see Spica conjunct that Venus, and we can see Pluto conjunct the South Node in the 2nd house with the Sun. Very strong. This is a very big advocate for trans rights. She's the youngest trans woman to go through transition in the United States. She did it when she was 6, I believe. And she's a known activist. Look at how much beautiful energy there is in the chart. Sun Spica still in conjunction. And we can see Alcyon smack in the 8th, conjunct her Saturn and Jupiter all in the mercurial sign. You can see how much Mercury is there also by Mercury conjunct Venus in the 1st. And look at the nodes, not only on the 4th, 10th axis, also on the Cancer, Capricorn axis. Also Mars in a mutable sign in Virgo plays a part. This is a person I wanted to bring forth because of the placement of Altair in their chart, Spica on their horizon, conjunct Mercury on the south node, talking about Caitlyn Jenner, who really boldened and inspired a lot of people, including myself, to go forth with their identity and believe that it is a possibility in this new world. Look at Altair conjunct that moon on the same degree, and Spica is in a very, very strong point, the most strong point of the chart statistically, according to Michel Gauquelin, who studied scientific astrology. This is the most influential part of our chart. Also the nodes in the 12th, 6th axis, which is mutable. And again, Mars and Virgo, we're going to see that a lot. This is Dana International. She's a famous transgender singer from Israel. Get a lot of Uranian energy. Altair rising with Mercury. Look at that conjunction on the south node with the packed second 8th axis. So not only Uranus, but also Pluto. This is another trans woman. And here I wanted you to look at, again, Spica rising with Pluto. We can see that scorpionic Uranus in the first. Many trans women have either a moon in Capricorn or a moon in Cancer. Again, that axis. I think it's most of the charts we looked at so far. We can see Mars in a mutable sign. We can see, we can see Mars in Aquarian sign and Mercury, that whole bunch on the south node in a mercurial house, and Altair conjunct the sun. Another female trans woman, look at this stellium in the 12th on her horizon. Again, north node with an Aquarian signature. And we can see a strong scorpionic Pluto on the MC, a very strong point. This is a genderqueer who identifies as male. Look at the Uranus-Mars signature on the south node. Uranus-Mars is a lot of time talks about non-conformity, even in the transgender community. I don't want to relate myself to either sex. I don't want to be binary. I want to bend the rules. Myself, I'm different. And by the way, look at Alcyon on the north node. Another genderqueer. A lot of sixth house activity, nodes. Here we can see some karma and trauma with relationships. Again, look at that Pluto rising high. Again, the moon is not only in Cancer, it's conjunct Saturn. It's got the old axis. And a very, very strong Mercury. Alcyon on the south node. I know this chart. So we have another non-binary transgender woman here. Spica on the north node, smack, same degree. Uranus on the ascendant in Scorpio in retro. That's enough to make someone transgendered. Moon and Jupiter are in the 8th in Gemini. Alcyon is on the same degree of the Sun. And we can see the Mars-Venus conjunction on the South Node in a packed 6th house. In other words, here I am. And having this chart made me interested in what dwelled within me and how I could identify it. And it caused me to go outside and search. And I come to you with some of the conclusions, and as you can see, I've changed. And I'm still changing. And I'm enjoying it tremendously. It's a weight off my shoulders and off my heart that I've longed for greatly for many years. So remember, in the end, love wins over fear, over our boundaries, over death itself. Because love is life. That's the only way that life has ever been created, with love. You're most welcome to follow me. You could go to Boaz Fyler or Nia Fyler at gmail.com. My site is still boazfyler.com. This is my phone. I have WhatsApp. You can call me over with WhatsApp all the time. I'm on a Jerusalem time zone. You could visit Profiler Astrology on Facebook or the Evolutionary Astrology message channel in YouTube, where I send out weekly reports about the celestial occurrences, so you could be much more prepared for them and utilize them better. And always remember to boldly take yourself where you've never taken yourself before. May you all live long and prosper.
Nia, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we don't have any questions. You've been very thorough.
Wonderful.
So thank you very much from all of us, and we're looking forward to catching you next time. Would you all thank Boaz Nia Fyler?
So happy.
Thank you. It's great to see you all. It's been my pleasure. Carolyn, it's good to see you, darling.
Good to see you. You're beautiful. I love you.
Oh, you look great too, darling. You look great too. May we all keep healthy at this time.